Hey everyone, I'm Ben Schneider, and after a bit of a hiatus, we are back with another episode of The Ben Schneider Show. I got away from doing this with how busy I've been with Grid and the other things I've been working on, but we're back, and I want to start doing this again, at least on a semi-regular basis. This is episode 38. I started doing this a couple of years ago through Scout Radio at Gordon College, and it's evolved into a place for me to have conversations with both old friends I've known for years and new friends I've only recently met through our shared connections. Now, for the first show back, I thought, who better to bring back on this show than Noah Pfenninger. Noah was my classmate and cross-country teammate from 6th grade all the way through graduation, and he and I also became good friends because we were both NASCAR fans growing up. We'll get into that a little bit next week, but for now, sit back and enjoy what will hopefully be the first of many new episodes of this podcast. Let's jump right into it. All right, man. Well, we're up and running. So,
okay.
Well, first of all, congratulations to you on your wedding and your marriage.
Thank you.
How did you and Cassandra meet?
So we actually met at church a long while ago, and we just grew to be close friends. And then in between sophomore and junior year of college, we just got close enough. I asked her out over the summer, and we had a long-distance relationship for my last 2 years of college. We got engaged before my senior year, and then we just got married after my graduation and after I got a part-time position at a church. So
yeah, well, I guess one of the other first things I should ask you is I know your dad's been recovering, yeah, and I saw some of the pictures on Facebook and social media. I know he had wanted to be a part of the ceremony. I guess question is, how is he doing now, and how much was he able to take part in that?
So he was able to officiate our wedding, the ceremony. So that was really great. I was worried that he wasn't going to be able to. And then a couple days after that, he actually had another surgery to put his skull back on. So he's doing absolutely great. You know how insurance works, it can only allow for a certain amount of therapies. But a school down in Lynchburg actually took him on for students to learn physical therapy with. So he's actually getting therapy for free now, which is a godsend. It's absolutely amazing.
That's awesome. I saw your mother's been updating us, and
yeah, she's been getting good at
talking about how the insurance, kind of playing hardball a little bit, and you guys had to fight the first time to get the extra therapy, and now you weren't granted that. So it's great to hear that. He's at least got that opportunity to continue his recovery.
Yeah, really. I mean, free therapy is hard to come by, but it's really amazing how God has provided, not just in this idea of, or not in just the aspect of therapy, but in the aspect of, how my mom's been able to recuperate with that. I mean, I was able to be down there for the first 5 months or 3 or 4 months that it happened while I was in school, because they lived only 10 minutes away from me. So I was able to go with my mom to, she was going to my church that I was serving at, and I was able to go with her to the hospital and run errands for her, and my grandmother was right there. So it was really just, even that whole aspect of me being able to be down there, and now my brother's down there, and my brother just moved slightly closer to them too. That's just, it's all God working, and it's really amazing to see.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I know you were born in Texas, and were there for, I think, only a matter of a few weeks.
3 weeks.
I remember when we first met, you talked about how you went to Disney World like every other week because you were in Florida at the time.
Yeah.
And
speaking of Disney, I'm going to Disney next month.
Oh, awesome.
Cassandra and I have, before
is that Disney World in Florida?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, before we get started with the family stuff, we're just kind of wanting to take some trips, just the two of us, and Disney's one of them. So taking some vacation time, going down next month in October, and spending a few days for the 50th, and then come back.
Yeah, so I don't know. Tell me about your early life a little bit. I know obviously your family was in Texas.
Yeah.
What caused them to relocate to Florida and then eventually up here?
Well, so I grew up a pastor's kid, so my dad moved around from church to church. He actually worked at, I want to say 4 or 5 different churches in Florida. And then in 2006, my dad was able to acquire a position a worship pastor position in Newcastle, Delaware, at First Baptist Church of Delaware. So that's what caused us to move over here, and he's worked at another church since, and now they're down in Lynchburg, Virginia. But after getting married, of course, I moved up here and got a position up here. So, yeah.
So you were at Newcastle Christian Academy. I guess was it Newcastle Baptist still when you first got there?
It was Newcastle Christian. It had already changed, and I had only been to Newcastle Christian for about 4 years, so I wasn't there too long, and then it changed to Tall Oaks, of course. So
was Jonathan ever there? I forget
yes.
how much older he is than you. But...
He's 7 years older than I am, so he spent all of high school there, from what I know.
Yeah, so he graduated, and then the school closed, and well, I was at Tall Oaks, came over and
relocated. Yeah,
that's really how we met and how we connected.
Which is also a blessing in and of itself. I think I received a much better education through Tall Oaks than I was getting through Newcastle Christian. So
yeah, well, it's pretty rigorous, but the end result for those that stick with it is very good.
Yeah, I mean, it made college easier than what I experienced some people experience in college.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're using like college textbooks as early as the end of middle school for some classes. So,
and even just the amount of writing that we did and all that was
the main thing for me.
Extremely helpful.
Yeah.
I remember my first year at Liberty, I had to write like a 15-page paper, and so many people were stressing over it, and I'm like, 15 pages, we got it. I don't even have to read it this time.
Yeah, I mean, well, I remember doing like 1.5, 2-page reflections, and there were times where, if I had a late night or something, was super busy, I'd go to sleep, knowing that I could just get up early in the morning and knock it out, just because, in high school that might have freaked me out a little bit trying to do something like that, but having written so much and being used to that, and the fact that I also was an English minor, it comes sort of naturally to me. So
yeah, I think it'll help prepare us for all that in college, really. So
yeah, we'll get into that in a little bit, but I want to start with connecting in middle school, and I guess the biggest thing that I remember from that is the start of the cross country days. So this would have been the fall of 2010, and I remember
so long ago.
Yeah, it's crazy how that's as old of a memory now as like us being born would have been then. Like we were 11.
We were 11.
We were 11 when that started. We're 22 now. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah. I mean, I remember back when Tall Oaks was still at the Faith City campus, really enjoying the mile runs and the half-mile runs that Mrs. Shaw would have us do in PE. So that's kind of how I fell into love with running. I knew a couple of our classmates were going to come out and join the team, but I was a little surprised to see you there as well, and that turned out to be a tremendous blessing to have somebody who was about my pace to run with for a while.
I'm not a natural runner at all. Let's just make that clear. I'm not built for running. You're built for running. You're tall, you're lanky. I'm short and wide. Not built for running.
Yeah, so tell me how you got started with the team, and what made you decide to come out despite not having any sort of experience in running.
I honestly don't remember what made me want to, other than the fact that I knew I wanted to do some sort of sport or athletic thing just so I could get into it. And, I probably wanted to make more friends at the time too. And my sister and my brother my older sister and my older brother had done sports too. So that just probably made me want to, look, cross country, I could go and try that out, I guess. And stuck with it. So, yeah.
Do you remember the race at Redeemer in 6th grade?
I think we were in the very back, weren't we?
Yeah, well, I remember I talked to you like the day before or something, and I said like, hey, this is a brand new course. It's going to be a huge race. It's going to be tough. Do you want to try to? Yeah, I'm sure it was hot. Do you want to try to do this race together?
Yeah.
And I guess I kind of owe you an apology because I remember we got to like the 3-mile mark, and we hadn't talked about this much beforehand, but in my mind, I was thinking, okay, once we get to, the final stretch there, it's every man for himself. So I kind of took off a little bit.
I don't remember the end of the race. I guess that's how tired I was. I remember the middle of the race. and I remember how hot it was because there was like very little shade on that course. It was a lot of field. I think it was a lot of fields, wasn't it? A lot of open fields.
That sounds right. Yeah, I think you certainly finished on an open area without hardly any shade. So,
and I mean, everyone starts somewhere. If I started way back.
Yeah, well, I was right there with you.
Yeah.
I remember when my time started with a 3, and those days
4 even.
Yeah.
So,
well, I just did DVCS just had their back to school 5K, and like I've been enjoying my retirement. I haven't run regularly since November because I graduated a semester early.
Mm-hmm.
So that was probably the first time I've run more than a quarter mile in 9 months. So, I hadn't lost so much of the speed. I'd lost a lot of the endurance and the ease of which I was able to keep it up. Like I could have run probably a couple minutes faster if my life depended on it or if the race actually meant something. But I realized very quickly that I was not in peak shape at all. So I just backed off and decided to take it easy. And I'm still running. I think it was like, my time was in the low 28s, which, by the standards of what I was running in college would be awful. But, just for a casual
that would have
back
been
to
about
school
my,
race that
my
isn't
time
even
too.
chip timed. Yeah, I mean, it was fun to be back out there. And I just got a new pair of running shoes. I've got them on right now, actually.
Oh, nice.
So
They look good.
Trying to get back into it a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I guess later that year in 6th grade, you came out for basketball as well. What do you?
I was not a good basketball player.
Yeah, well, I got to be honest, I wasn't really either. But yeah, I mean, yeah, you and coming out for sports that you had very little background in. What made you want to try that one?
My brother had done it, and so I'm like, oh, my brother did it, I could do it.
You remember anything from your time there? I guess you took 7th grade off and then came back for a couple years.
Yeah, I was there 8th grade. I don't think I did it any time in high school.
I thought you were 9th grade too.
Possibly. I remember stinking really bad at those free throws, like having to go to the cafeteria and do free throws myself because I just couldn't get it.
Seems so easy, right? There's nobody guarding you. All you got to do is put it in the hoop, and yet there are NBA players that can't do it 50% of the time.
Even in college, I remember meeting up some friends on like a Saturday morning, going to the gym, and they would play basketball, and I'm like, I can't relive basketball again. And I would try, and I'm just like, okay, I can do like racquetball, I can do punching bag, I can do any of that kind of stuff, but basketball was I quickly learned that it was a no-go.
Yeah, well, let's get back into cross country since that's where we have more memories shared together.
Yeah.
So Mr. Rippon was actually our coach in 6th grade.
6th grade coach, yeah.
Yeah, and then I somehow seem to have it's weird the things that stand out to you that you remember. I feel like we raced more teams like in more courses that 6th grade year, and then in 7th grade it was kind of more just the base MIL teams a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I don't think we ever went back to Redeemer after that, right?
No, we didn't. We did, because 7th grade onward is like, it was Tome, West Nottingham, Tri-State.
Yeah. I guess, that's the thing. ECA had become Tri-State in that off-season, if you will. We coached Silver for a couple of years. I guess 7th grade and 8th grade, and then Coach Shirley joined him in 8th grade and then took it over himself the next year.
All of our high school, yeah.
Yeah.
Even going into Red Line.
Yeah, well, that was something that I thought was very fortunate that we were able to have him throughout our entire experience and our high school careers, and he's still working with DVCS to this day, which is pretty cool. So
even I remember he had a couple of surgeries to where he can't run long distance as much anymore, but he's even being able to bike with everyone and kind of seeing how they're running. And I don't know if is Coach Burns helping out with that at all?
I don't think so. Okay. I should reach out to him. I haven't heard from him at all. You remember he came to our graduation?
Yes, I do, which was very kind of him.
That was very cool. that he showed up to
I love Coach Burns. He was great.
Yeah.
Too good at running.
Yeah, he even gave me a run for my money a little bit.
Oh, yeah, I think he gave all of us. I mean, everything he did looked like he ran with ease.
Yeah, I mean, he could get down into the low 20s, maybe even the 19 range on his best day.
Yeah.
5K, so.
Yeah. So those were good times. All those coaches were absolutely great. And it's just nice that we had people available to coach, even when, the early years with Mr. Rapon, like, having Mr. Rapon there, I think was just really good to have him, especially in the times when you need a coach.
Yeah, and that he was able to balance that with teaching
yeah, because that's not easy either. He's grading papers and.
Yeah, imagine it must have been a lot. Yeah, well, I guess I know I certainly have my memories that stand out. Are there any races that you remember that like were some of your better performances or anything?
Some of the races that I remember is people hating our course sophomore year when we were out at William Penn.
I guess because we rented the Iron Hill course.
Yeah.
Through freshman year, and then we moved it. It was always the inconvenience of
having to drive.
It wasn't a home meet; it was an away meet with responsibility of setting up everything and running the event.
Yeah.
So it was, and I gotta admit, myself, it was nice to have it be a true home meet, and
it just
all thanks
stunk
to
as a course because there was absolutely no shade.
Yeah, well, it was nice that Colonial lifted their stance a little bit, because I know, like, when we first got there, we inquired about using the fields, and they said, we're never going to let you set foot on this facility, and then they got a new, I don't know if it was a new principal or a new superintendent or what, but they definitely softened their stance there a little bit. But yeah, it was kind of, I don't know, there's something about the repetition of having to do essentially a 4-lap race that it wasn't as fun for the runners. I guess the spectators, it was nice because you got to see most of the race, whereas Iron Hill, we do a lap and then run into the woods, and then we come back out. You see us finish. So,
and it's also in a lot of ways tougher in terms of the terrain and uphill downhill aspect of it, and completely busting my knee on that on that course one time too.
Was that the Iron Hill course?
That was Iron Hill. Yeah. I tripped on a root and landed on a sharp
rock.
That
was multiple courses, wasn't it?
It was like 7th grade to 10th grade or 11th grade. I mean, it was just a bunch of different races.
I feel like we got a picture of you somewhere, like either at Tome or West Nottingham, coming in with blood pouring down your knee or something.
I'm not surprised. There are so many times when we would be running in the woods. It wouldn't even have to be heavy woods. It could be like West Nottingham or Tome. And there would be some sort of rock or root just there. And it was calling my name. And my foot would, of course, get into it. And then my knees, I would fall down and pick myself back up and keep running. And you get used to the pain after a while.
Yeah. Well, I remember, I guess, the year that stands out to me most is probably junior year, which ultimately... we could get into everything that happened with our school senior year and beyond after we left, or graduated, I guess. But what was ultimately the last year as the Tall Oaks Titans, we had a really strong team.
We beat Tome that year, didn't we?
We beat them in the regular season. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, that was tough at the championship because they got us back. But I remember, I think Cody was their top runner, and something was up with his hamstring. But he was still able to run with it. He wasn't quite as fast as how he could usually run. But I feel like I needed to beat somebody, you needed to beat somebody, Calvin needed to beat somebody, and it went Tome us in that order. And
a lot of races ended that way. I really remember West Nottingham, I think. Were we racing West Nottingham on our home course?
I think was that the time we swept the top 5?
We swept the top 5. Actually, I think we swept the top 6.
Well, who would it have been? It would have been you,
Marshall.
me, Calvin, Weston.
I got in front of Weston. I think I secured the 5th place spot.
Okay. Because Josh would have
been... Dietrich.
and maybe David. Because I know Weston was playing soccer, and I forget when he ended up being able to come out. But
Josh, you come with me.
Well, Weston's 3 years behind us, so that would have had to been junior year because he wouldn't have been running varsity as a seventh grader.
Yeah.
I remember a lot of great races against West Nottingham. They had this runner named Max our junior year that I remember swapping the lead back and forth with him at our home course.
Yeah.
He was like the opposite of me. Like he ran cross country, but he was really a basketball player. Because I remember seeing him later in the year doing basketball. Except he was even a much better cross country runner than I was a basketball player. But yeah, lots of great memories from those days. And
even doing the miles, and I think that was my fastest mile I'd ever swept. Was that season? It was like a 5:30 or something like that.
Are you talking about in practice?
In practice, yeah. Which I have not ever accomplished that since.
Yeah. Well, I remember I kind of peaked junior year, and then senior year you surpassed me.
Yeah,
it took you 7 years to do it, but you finally got me at the end there.
I don't know what was in me that season. I guess something had hit me, or I had lost a bunch of weight previously that just allowed me to kind of get a little faster and pick up my pace. Maybe I was more driven for it. It was a good season.
Yeah, you probably trained more that summer too, I guess.
I
just remember
I picked up some running and stuff like that too. So
I remember just being like, where did this come from? You know, I've always been able to at least hang with you, if not run a little bit faster. And then here you come senior year, stealing all the glory. I remember when you finally won a race.
Yeah,
I think
Josh Dietrich was sick.
Yes.
It was at Lumps Pond, right?
Yeah, it was. I think that might have actually been our only dual meet of the year.
Yeah.
I think we had a tri meet later that season against a couple schools, but we're running as Red Lion now because our athletics have merged. And like I said, that's a whole story that's probably better off for another time. But
Oh, actually, Lumps Pond is where I proposed to my now wife, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
By that lake over there. But yeah, I mean, we junior year and senior year were honestly, as much as I'm like running, they were like extremely fun. Several awesome, great friends. I mean, everyone we got along with on the team. Senior year, we were you were captain and I was
alternate captain.
Alternate captain, yeah. And so
we were essentially co-captains, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I remember, like you said, Josh was sick that day, so it was an opportunity for one of us if we could beat their fastest runner. But that's still one of my favorite photos of all time. Is after the race I still remember the kid's name. I think it was Logan.
I remember.
Got together and we had like our mini podium celebration. We got you in the middle and celebrating with you.
I remember our posters. At the time, I was drinking out of a giant water bottle.
Yeah, that would have been senior night, I guess, right?
Yeah, it was our senior race, senior night, because it was kind of like a home race. And I remember how the posters that we had, and Aaron had made some sort of joke about my water bottle, which was funny. Yeah. I don't even know where that water bottle is now. It might have broken, to be honest.
Yeah. I think I forget exactly what my poster said, but I think Trump was running for president at the time.
Yeah.
It's kind of looking back, I don't know how I feel about my senior cross country poster had the Trump theme incorporated into it, but I think it said like make cross country great again or something.
Yeah. I don't know if did it have a Titan on it or
something like that.
Or was it American flag? Something. It's got to be like some photo on the internet or something.
Yeah. Well, I've seen it because I think after Jay passed, we got some photos together and he was at that race.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm done thinking about politics. It's just every day you turn on the news and it's something new that's
my thought
going on. The world's on fire. So
my thought when I rang your doorbell, waiting. My thought was, so how's it living in Biden land? Because you're in the city just south of where Joe Biden lives.
Yeah. And, like bare minimum, like regardless of what you think of the man's politics, like it is nice now that at least everybody knows what Delaware is. Now that the president is from it. But I just kind of wish he was from Sussex County or something because...
But nobody's from Sussex County.
Well, that's true.
Thing.
But, they call it Joe Jams now. I don't know if you've heard that term.
No, I haven't.
Actually,
I have. Because he
well, where I work, I work in Greenville now, which is like 5 minutes from his house.
Mm-hmm.
So, especially early on in his term.
Because nobody can be around the president when, like, there can be no air traffic near him. And
yeah, he's got, like, the Secret Service and his motorcade coming home on our local roads and backing everything up. Like,
was it like every other week or something like that?
Well, like, even the Democrats here were getting annoyed with how often
I
he was
would,
coming
because
home.
going home and going to work, like, I don't want to deal with that. I'm glad I don't have to drive through Delaware whenever that happens to get to work and back home. So
yeah. I want to bring it back because I don't want to get, that's a tangent. I don't want to get too far off on. Trump was on my poster. I guess that's how we got on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather not relive the election. It was all just...
Neither the 2016 nor the 2020 election.
Yeah,
those were both painful.
And I don't even want to think about 24. So I guess we wrap up that season, and then did you continue running it all after that? I mean, you were certainly at that point in your... I mean, you'd never been faster in your life with all that training throughout the season. Did you keep up with it at all?
I did a little bit. When it gets to winter time, it's tough to run outside, and you've got all the snow and ice we can get even just over a night. So I maybe in the spring and going up to the summer, I remember going off into college. I got more into weightlifting. I had a couple of roommates that were into lifting weights. So
yeah, Liberty's D1, right?
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, Gordon being D3, it was a much more, the whole point of D3 is academics are the priority, and it's a smaller school, but trying to
academics are the priority, and I'm like, that's not.
I mean, supposed to be the priority, ideally the priority.
It's
we didn't really have any. I don't know. We didn't have very many problems with that with my teams at Gordon, but I know some places do. But yeah. I guess before we get into college stuff, do you remember? I guess sophomore year, Mr. Finch came over. He was the principal for 1 year, and we tried to start a track team.
Track and field. Oh.
Yeah. I still have that shirt. That was like one of my favorite wintertime training shirts up at college.
Shirt. I know I definitely have like the ribbons I got from that year.
Yeah. Well, I'm genuinely curious because I don't even... I mean, you're going to be telling me these stories for the first time in a while because I was somebody who was only like, I want to do what I'm familiar with, and that's run. Like just trying to... Because, I mean, Coach Burns saw that I had some raw speed by high school standards. So like I did a couple 100s and 200s, and like that to me was enough of a shock to my system, let alone trying to jump or throw or do any of that.
Yeah.
But you, correct me if I'm wrong, but you ventured out into the field events
the throwing,
a little bit.
Discus and shot put. And there are times I was watching... Sadly, I couldn't watch any of the Olympics just based on what was available to me at the time. So I really wanted to watch the men's decathlon at the Tokyo Olympics. But I was watching the Doha 2019 men's decathlon. And when I was watching that, I'm like, maybe I should have gone. Maybe I should have tried track and field in college. Because I remember it, and I remember some of the forms, and I absolutely loved it. It was such a fun time to me.
Yeah.
And I'm built a little bit more like a thrower with the shorter, a little bit stockier type of build. So,
yeah, I mean, it's just amazing to me, like watching professional decathlon athletes do what they do, just because there's such a wide range of skills needed to win that event.
Yeah,
because you look at a 100-meter runner versus a 1500-meter runner versus a thrower, and you can just tell by their physical appearance what their specialty is, because their bodies are tailor-made for those events. Whereas, you get in the decathlon, you have to be world-class level at all of them.
Yeah, all 10 events. And it's not any one of them is any of the... Like, they're not a master at any of one event. They can be especially good in certain events, like especially good at throwing or especially good at the 100 meter, but none of them are like... Usain Bolt doesn't do decathlons for the sole reason he's a master at sprinting,
Yeah.
but he's probably not any good at throwing a shot put or a discus.
Yeah. Well, he might be better than the average human being, but he's not going to
Probably.
be. He's not going to win an Olympic gold medal.
No.
You know, I feel like I read somewhere that like he's never run a mile, like ever in his training. And,
I can believe it. Because
I mean, it makes sense.
Fast twitch versus slow twitch muscles.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all in the science, really. He's using different muscles than, I mean, some of the same muscles, of course, but different muscles in other ways than a thrower.
Well, I know that, you know, Bolt would do the 100 meter and 200 meter double. You know, I feel like the 200 and the 400 double is even a little bit tougher because I think, just scientifically speaking, the human body can only all out sprint for like 250, 300 meters.
Yeah.
You know, if they could sprint for 400 meters, the world record would be down in the 39, 40 second range, but it's not. It's 43 something. So
And that's going all out too. It's the limits of the human body are kind of crazy in what they're able to do, and how much attention can, especially in a decathlete, how much attention can one person put into a specific event.
Yeah, but it's crazy when it gets up to that high of an elite level. You know, just how different those events are. You know, even though they're technically in the same sport.
Yeah. So anyway, going back to track and field, I love track and field. I remember doing a lot of the throwing events with I think with David Walzak.
I think David did some throwing.
Did he do some throwing?
Right.
And Grace Bauman and I, we were the three kind of high school throwers, and that was a lot of fun. I remember we trained with a 12-pound shot put, I believe, but in the actual throwing competitions, they gave us a smaller one, which was weird.
I guess it's better that than the opposite, to train with a smaller one and then be surprised with an even bigger one or heavier one.
Yeah, except other than anticipating your form.
Well, that's true. I mean, I never threw anything, so not even in college. David actually, we talked a little bit about this when he was on, back when I was doing this in the Scout Radio days.
Yeah.
But he came out his sophomore year, my freshman year. He had run cross country his freshman year at Gordon, and then ventured into rowing a little bit actually, and then he came back to do track as a thrower. And trained a little bit. I think he got mono at some point that season. I don't even know, but he got to compete in a single meet. But he trained with us for most of the year, so that was cool to be teammates with him again. Did you win any ribbons or medals, you were saying?
I had a few ribbons. I want to say the best one I got was like a second place ribbon, but I don't even know what it was. And the ribbons weren't very specific on what they said on it.
Yeah.
And then I got the coach's award at the end of the year for the season.
That's right.
But
did you run at all during track?
I did a 1 mile, and I think
that sounds right.
I think I did a 200 as well.
I feel like we raced each other at some point.
We probably did. You crushed me. I remember that.
Well, I mean, I don't know. It still wasn't something that I was used to. I guess the 800 to 1600 felt pretty good.
Yeah.
That was more my thing.
Yeah, and I remember doing a 200, and there were only because they did it in heats, and in my heat there were only 3 people. I remember smoking the rest of it in my heat.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I could never. I thought about what I want to try to venture into throwing just to see what it's like, and I talked to Edison, our coach, about it a little bit. But at the same time, I thought to myself, it might be cool if Eddie could show me how you do it. But I don't want to go out there and just compete in an event to be able to have that on my record and say I did it. If I'm going to do it, I want to be able to do it well and contribute to the team, and to be able to get to that point. You've got to train for it multiple times a week, and when you start doing that, you're losing a little bit of your training on the running. So
yeah,
there are some athletes who can do both, and that's great. It's really impressive. But
yeah,
I was definitely a runner.
Of course, I never did the 2 mile in track and field, and I was more of a thrower in terms of that. I remember doing some training with the runners, but when it came to form, I mean, especially on a professional level, they train form and weights all the time as throwers. And again, if you're training weights, you're most likely going to suffer in your running aspect because you're getting bigger as a result. I remember doing a lot more of the training of the throwing and enjoying that, and getting to toss the or get the discus out as far as I could. It was fun.
Yeah. Well, we talked about college a little bit, and let's get back into that. So we graduate in 17.
Yep.
And then you're off to Liberty, which I think you were kind of always on that path. You went through the application process, but I think from what I remember, at least you had talked about wanting to go there for a while.
Yeah.
I was kind of the opposite with Gordon. It wasn't until very late that I found that. But I haven't really gotten a chance to sit down with you like this and talk in a while. So kind of catch me up a little bit. What was your college experience like? Tell me what you studied, what your major was, and I know you were into music and ministry and everything, but what was your Liberty experience like?
Yeah. Well, my Liberty experience was 4 years of hard work and a lot of practicing music. I mean, I know music is different than a lot of other studies at any school. My freshman year, second semester, I also went into ROTC. Starting in the fall, and I think October of 2017, I was working to go into the National Guard, and I was supposed to ship out in May. And so I'm like, well, if this spirals into a career, I can become an officer. So I started doing ROTC. And then, ship out date happens, and I had 2 seizures. So that immediately kicked me out of the...
Yeah. That's right. I completely forgot about that. I remember you messaging us. I mean, my roommate Shane was in ROTC, his time in college, so I certainly know how demanding that is.
Yeah, and I enjoyed ROTC. I made some really good friends along the way. I've met some really awesome people. A couple of my friends from there, a couple of people in my squad in ROTC, they're married now, which is awesome. Yeah. So even if I could only have done 1 semester, still really enjoyed it.
Did you ever figure out what triggered those seizures at all?
No, my thought is it was probably just a crazy amount of stress because I was waking up early every morning to go to the gym and work out. And then even on the days where I woke up early, even in the evening, I would go back to the gym and work out. And then also staying up real late, being an idiot, playing video games with some other guys, playing Super Smash Bros.
Oh, that's just college, though.
Oh, yeah. Greninja is my main, if anyone is wondering.
I don't even know what that means because I don't play those games. But
You ever play Pokemon, right?
Yeah.
Greninja is a Pokemon.
Ninja. Yes, okay.
And he's in Super Smash Bros. Anyway.
All right.
But that combined with the little sleep and just the crazy amount of exercise that I was doing, I probably... And then a little bit of stress toward going to basic training and probably just overstressed myself. Gave myself 2 seizures because when you have 1, you're more likely to have another.
But you've been fine since then, right?
I had 1 a year later, 13 months later. And since then, I haven't had any, so...
Yeah. I mean, is there some sort of recovery process to go beyond that? Because I imagine, like you said, once you have 1, the risk increases of another.
So, of course, there are driving restrictions depending on the state, so I couldn't drive for 6 months. I keep up with a epileptologist. I've been fine. I just take medication and...
Haven't had a problem since?
Nope.
That's good.
No, so I'm completely fine. Well, for the most part, fine. It's every once in a while I get a little scare, like, I'm not feeling too good. Maybe I should lie down or something like that just in case. But It's not like living in with certain other disabilities. So I wouldn't even call it a disability at a certain point.
Well, I know your family is very heavily involved in both music and ministry.
Yep.
Is that something that helped influence your desire to follow down that path as well?
Definitely. I remember my parents met in marching band in high school, so they definitely had a musical influence. And then my father majored in music education in college, and then he moved on and became a worship pastor. And I remember even 3rd grade, I was in band that my dad was teaching at Newcastle Christian, which was really nice. I learned to play the baritone. That was kind of my beginnings of learning to read music. And my mom taught the children's choir at church. And that just kind of spiraled into, especially middle school and going into high school with ensemble and singing in the ensemble. And then I learned to play guitar and piano. And I got into singing a lot. So it just kind of spiraled into that.
Yeah, I remember the ensemble days.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I kind of got.
those were fun.
I did, that because that was an elective. I did computer programming my freshman year, and then
That was before ensemble was open to guys, though.
yeah. Well, sophomore year it was when they opened it up because there was enough interest at that point.
Yeah.
And so you did it, and then I think Miss Lord actually recruited me, got me out of. I still did computer programming as my
At that point, I
elective
was
on my
still a
transcript,
bass.
but
Now I consider myself a tenor, which is sad, but
yeah,
also not sad because now I've been told I'm a bass sometimes. And I'm like, I'm not. I'm more of a baritone.
yeah.
When you get down to it.
I think that's probably me too. I haven't been involved with singing like that since I graduated, so
Yeah.
I probably lost a little bit of the range and probably not quite as good as I was in high school, just because I haven't been doing it regularly enough.
Yeah, I mean, I had weekly vocal lessons. I was in choir all 4 years of college. My last 2 years of college, I was in an a cappella group, a traveling a cappella group. So I was singing so often that sometimes it was tough for me to get through certain weeks because my voice was just exhausted. And my last 2 years, I was serving at a church too. So I was singing on their vocal team. I was singing in their choir, and it became a lot vocally for me.
Yeah. So what kind of classes did you take?
So like I said, I took a bunch of vocal lessons, took 3 semesters of music theory and 3 semesters of musicianship, group piano classes, ministry classes. I got to learn about church history, which, I mean, we learned some of that in high school, but especially on the music front, I took a songwriting class, audio production class, so a lot of music center classes. I think I had to take 1 semester of English, which I just got rid of freshman year. I'm just getting out of the way.
Was that part of the core that everybody has to take?
General studies or gen eds, and I took 1 semester of math. I absolutely hated that class. The teacher was not the best. I'm not going to reveal the teacher, but if you're at Liberty, just take math online.
Yeah. Did you do Karen credits at all?
I didn't.
You didn't?
I didn't.
I was very fortunate to have those because I didn't have to take a math class. But I regret my mother didn't want to do Greek for me just because of what our Greek experience was like with.
Yeah, it wasn't the best Greek experience.
It was nobody's fault. It just the teacher we hired, Dr. Haynes, was Canadian and he couldn't get a work visa or something, so he was Skyping into our class for the first half of the year, and then
it was no one person's fault. It was just unfortunate circumstances all around.
Well, and it was actually ironically kind of a preview, I guess, of what everybody's been faced with the last year and a half or so. But as everybody knows by now, it makes things more difficult, and it's hard. It's much harder to do as much with that, and cover as much curriculum. So my family just didn't feel comfortable taking that and using it for my transcript. So I had to take a year's worth of foreign language, which every Gordon student has to do, and I just chose Spanish because I had a little bit of Spanish knowledge from high school, and Spanish 101 was okay. Spanish 102 was a disaster, and I don't even.
You
wanna,
made it.
I made it. Yeah.
And that's all that matters.
Yeah, thinking back to some of the assignment, there was going to be, I think, an interview or conversation that lasted 10 or 12 minutes, and I just my Spanish would have been so broken. We changed things up when we went online when COVID hit, and I feel bad saying this, but I didn't have to do as much. That was actually kind of a relief a little bit, but
we never had to at Liberty. I don't know about other majors, but I know for my major, music and worship, we didn't have to do a foreign language. Now, recently I've been getting into learning foreign languages, so I use Duolingo, and this is not sponsored, by the way, by Duolingo.
Yeah.
But I use Duolingo. I've been learning French, and part of that was because we were supposed to be honeymooning in France, but COVID.
Yeah.
So I enjoy doing stuff when I'm not told that I have to do it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, I get it. It's a liberal arts college.
Yeah.
But I was at college to get my comm arts and English classes and get that degree. I wasn't there to study a foreign language or take historical perspectives, which is, I totally respect the class. It's just not what I was there for. So it was kind of like busy work to me. I don't know if it's the same way at Liberty, but I felt like, a lot of Gordon students felt like, the core classes were the ones that gave you the most busy work and the most homework and
they had
time-consuming.
They had some of the worst ones. They had this class freshman year called Univ 101, where you had to go around the university and take pictures and figure out how the library worked. As a music student, I never really worked in the library. I maybe sat in there and did homework, but I never used the books. I never used their system because all the research I did, I was online. I used the databases that they gave us. So they had a research 201 class that I didn't even care about. They had some of the worst classes for gen eds that sometimes I wish if I could just be an online student and not have to do these stupid classes. But
how big is... I know Liberty's, the online program is, massive.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about how big the on-campus population with undergrads is, but then you factor in the online students, and it just balloons.
It hits about 100,000 if you include online. It's about 15,000 on
okay.
On
is
campus.
It down a little bit? Because I thought it was closer to 20.
The population of Liberty, it fluctuates and goes back because you get, especially in the fall semester, you get a whole ton of new students who come in as freshmen, and then a lot of them drop out. I remember even the music majors, we had a huge dropout in my class because so many people were like, well, I don't want to deal with musicianship or music theory. You either struggle with one or the other, by the way. I don't want to struggle with music theory or musicianship, so I'm just going to go interdisciplinary and take music classes, but do a bunch of other stuff.
Well, I remember one of the appealing things about Gordon and about several other schools I looked at was because I'd grown up in a small private Christian high school, in K through 12 school. I felt like it would have been a shock to my system kind of if I'd gone to a bigger campus with couple tens of thousands of students and or a state school or things like that. So I wanted a similar environment to what I was used to.
Yeah.
Whereas Liberty, a lot of these smaller Christian universities and colleges, only have anywhere from 1,500 to 2,500, 3,000 students. You're on a much bigger campus. So what's, having grown up in the same school and same environment I was in, what did that feel like?
It was certainly a shock at the beginning. When I started getting into my classes, and especially with where I lived on East Campus, so they were apartment places. We had about 7 guys in an apartment. I started making a bunch more friends, which was nice. At first, it's okay, what do? I'm here for freshman orientation. My roommate's kind of weird, which is kind of what everyone thinks when they first meet their roommate. So what do? And of course, we graduated with Sophia, and so she was on campus, so we hung out a little bit. But when I started making a lot more friends, it definitely grew easier to tolerate being on campus and spending time with friends. And then I met some other guys, and you go around, make some friends. You get these people who have 1 million friends, and I don't understand them because you're barely hanging out with each and every one of them. I'm just I'll have my core group of friends, and we can hang out, do stuff, spend some 2 a.m. nights in the practice rooms. And once that hit, it honestly felt closer to home, as in I wasn't stressing about how many people there were. I was just yeah, these are the guys that I can talk to, and left it at that.
Is it true that the campus is so big that sometimes you have to take a shuttle or get a ride over to another building to get to class?
If you're lazy, yes.
Yeah.
I was definitely one of the walkers on campus. I spent a lot of time walking, which was nice because I could get fresh air and a little bit of natural exercise. And it's definitely a hilly place. They started putting bird scooters. I don't know if you're familiar with bird scooters.
I think I've heard of a term.
I know in certain cities they have bird scooters that they rent out, and you can sort of use an app on your phone to rent it out. So they had bird scooters on campus, but I was definitely one of those people that walked around. Again, most of my classes were in the music building. I spent a couple in the main general studies building, but the music building was right next to both that and the dining hall, so it wasn't bad at all for me.
Sure.
It was about a 10 to 15 minute walk every morning.
Yeah, so, obviously COVID has been very disruptive since, that whole thing came on last March. What was the Liberty experience like? How did they respond to that? And, what ended up happening to the end of your junior year?
Yeah. Come March, they basically shut everything down. They had limited... people could decide to stay on campus. Of course, most people, if they can go home, they're going to go home. So campus got very empty very quickly. I ended up staying on campus for a little while, for about a month. We closed in March. I stayed until April, and I was working on campus at a fast food place just to make a little extra money because I needed it. But I ended up going home and finishing out online. It was nice. I miss the campus atmosphere because having a lot of friends there and just being able to spend time, it was fun. But when campus got quiet, it was also really nice because you didn't have any of the idiots on campus you can normally get.
Yeah.
I don't know how Gordon is with the amount of not smart people on campus.
I just couldn't believe, it would be after midnight and it was November in Massachusetts, mind you. And, because I remember thinking in September, October, you could hear people partying outside. And I remember just thinking, okay, a couple more weeks, it's going to be cold enough. All this is going to be happening indoors. And they're out there making noise. And, I'm trying to fall asleep to get ready for a 6 a.m. practice.
You weren't because you were sports. You weren't a party animal in college.
No, and I couldn't. Yeah, like you said, even if I wanted to, you got to watch what you're eating to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
You can't stay up super late. You got to be taking care of your body. So, but that's just not who I am in general. Yeah. So,
I had the same roommate sophomore and junior year, and between sophomore and junior year, he was able to become a walk-on for our football team. And I remember he had so many opportunities to go to parties, but as soon as they broke out the weed, he was out of there because you can get kicked out of sports teams.
Yeah.
For that. So I remember he was very adamant about going to bed early, and he's still on the football team. He's a grad student now in law, and he's got a couple more years. I think next year he's looking to play more and more often. So he's offensive lineman.
He's got a couple more years of eligibility.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah.
That's
so
cool.
He's an offensive lineman on there. He's a big guy.
Yeah. Well then, so what was it like going back for senior year? Because I remember. We were very fortunate. Things seems, obviously everybody is distanced and masked and taking precautions, which is good. But, everything else about it, you're living on campus, you're eating at the dining hall, or getting stuff to go at the very least. It felt like a normal year in many ways.
Yeah, the first couple months, you get a ton of people who just got COVID. One of my buddies was the RA of where they had the kind of COVID people living, just so that they could have some sort of order. And then we had a ton of people getting COVID. But after those first couple of months, it pretty much settled down. I was still working at a fast food place.
Yeah. Did your cases drop as the semester went on? Okay.
They did.
Yeah. I don't know, but we're obviously a much smaller school, but I don't know if anybody I knew tested positive throughout the year.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We were very lucky because everybody had to have a negative test within 3 days before we arrived, and then after a week they retested everybody, and we had, I think it was 1,188 students on campus because a lot of people still opted to you had the option to come back or do online. So our numbers were down a little bit because we had a couple hundred stay online, but 1,188, I think it was, students tested, and 3 were positive. And they were immediately isolated and recovered. And then, we really went, 2.5 months without having a lot of problems. And then the weekend before, the last week before Thanksgiving break, I think we had some positive cases. And then the next day we had some more. And then they decided they were going to send everybody home, if they wanted to, a couple of days early. For Thanksgiving break, but other than that, that was really the only disruption that we had. So it was very lucky for that.
Yeah, sorry, I was checking my Liberty email because I remember we would get so many things on campus that the head of the campus police department would send out 6 or 7 emails saying you got multiple people getting COVID a day. I mean, there's 6 or 7 emails a day. So I was checking to see, have I gotten any of those emails today? I mean, people meme about it now because it got to be too much.
Well, I mean, I guess, being a private college, you have some liberties, no pun intended, and freedom.
We caught a lot of flack for a lot of different things.
Well, was Virginia? I mean, I'm trying to think back to how because the states obviously with each governor responded differently. What was it like? Not just thinking of liberty, but Virginia being down there during the whole thing.
So where I was in Virginia, I mean, nobody cared. If I went, over to Blacksburg, that's a whole different story. Or if I went up to Charlottesville, that would have been a whole different story. There's a difference between.
Well, the state's very big, so I assume you have a diverse.
Very diverse. If you're closer to DC,
opinions,
it's going to be. They're going to want that mask mandate a lot more. While, it's the same with Maryland too.
Yeah.
I mean, anything around Baltimore and DC, that's all. We're getting into politics again. Let's stop that.
Yeah. No, yeah. Well, it's tough not to because it's a shame everything's been so
politicized.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to avoid it, but.
Yeah, anyway, it was, schools were open, Virginia Tech, UVA. We still had sports, very limited. You had to get like a lottery thing to get into football games. So I never got to go to a football game my senior year, which was sad. Football games were like the most fun days to go. I mean, for the most part, it was fine. They wanted us to wear masks to be socially distanced. But at a point, you can't really. They wanted us to be masked on campus, I should say.
Yeah, well, I guess it's harder to police too when you've got that many students, and it's the students are probably divided on the issues just as much as the adults are.
For the most part, because even Liberty's a private Christian university, you still have a lot of Democrats, you have a lot of Libertarians, you have a lot of Republicans. I hung out with the Libertarian crowd a lot, so I'm a bit more stop bothering me. I just want to do what I want. Move to Alaska and not have to deal with anything.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about everything within reason. As long as you're not hurting anybody else.
Within reason.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what are you up to now? I mean, I know you said you were coming over here from work, so obviously you're just married.
Yep.
I've been wanting to get you over here for a little while and start this thing back up again, but wanted to give you time after the wedding to get settled and everything.
Getting my affairs in order and
What's going on now? What are you up to?
So now I'm the worship pastor at a church up in Oxford, Pennsylvania, which is about 45 minutes away from here, depending on the traffic. It's called Beulah Baptist Church. So I'm their first worship pastor they've ever had. So I'm settling into the role, figuring out these technologies, and even a budget. Like, we need to figure out a budget for mine, and that's taking up a lot of my time, is scheduling, getting that stuff ready. And I'm doing a lot of stuff at home, playing video games. That's probably the thing playing video games and reading are probably the two things that I do the most.
Yeah. Did you get the PS5?
Yes, I have a PS5.
We got to talk, because I've been wanting to get it for a little while now, and I keep thinking, well, maybe I'll wait till Black Friday, but I've got a feeling the stock issue isn't even going to be fixed by then, so the prices probably aren't going to drop.
Yeah, I mean,
how'd you get yours?
My wife got it for me for Christmas when we were still engaged.
All right, well, how did she get it?
She had kept up really. She had tried to keep it a secret, and she almost bought it off of someone on Facebook Marketplace, which I told her not to. And I said I'd wanted a PS4 for a while, not a PS5. She's like, I might as well get you the PS5. I had somehow figured it out.
Is it backwards compatible, pretty much?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, so I have a bunch of PS4 games.
Yeah. That was like the only thing I feel like Xbox won in the last generation, was the ability to be backwards compatible.
Yeah.
I think most people, generally speaking, would say the PS4 kind of won the console wars.
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the PS5, I guess, is, I don't know, is Facebook Marketplace as bad at, like, scalpers marking it up to ridiculous, stupid amounts of money?
Ever since I got it, I haven't looked.
Yeah.
So she was able to keep up. Cassandra was really able to keep up well with Facebook groups and stuff like that. I think she even got a Twitter. and was able to get it off of Walmart.
You're like notified when things were restocked? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think she was able to get it off of Walmart. Like, she spent a whole 3 or 4 hours before work just, like, waiting for it. Just keep refreshing the page and refreshing the page because you never know when it's going to pop up. They just say it's going to pop up sometime between this period. And so she did that and spent a whole bunch of money on me. So I said no more gifts for me for the next 3 years.
Yeah, well, that's... I got the PS4 for Christmas a few years ago, and I feel like I would like to buy this next console with my own money, but I don't know. I want it, but I don't want it badly enough yet to the point where... Because, most of the new games are still coming out for the other consoles.
I would say it's not...
Yeah. I don't want it badly enough yet to the point where I'm, actively looking for restocks and trying to get it that badly.
It was just at that point I didn't have a PS4 anyway, and we're like, well, might as well buy the PS5 now.
Yeah, I'm still holding out. The new F1 game's out, so I'm trying to decide if I want to get it for my Xbox One now and just get started, or I still need to finish my F1 2020 season anyway. I might as well just wait until I have the new console.
It's a great console. I have Black Ops Cold War for the PS5, and that's a lot of fun, like playing the story mode with the haptic triggers and some stuff like that, because it feels, in some ways, not in every way, it feels like you're pulling a real trigger. But whenever I play multiplayer, I don't play it like that because it slows me down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the nice thing about PlayStation, I guess, is you've got the Spider-Man games, and
Spider-Man PS4.
That's a Sony thing, I think. With
have you played the game?
I played the PS4 game a little bit.
It's probably one of the best superhero games made. I absolutely love it, and
Well, that was when I said to myself, I feel like I've been able to get by with just the Xbox One, but now that you've got Spider-Man coming out, I might have to. I haven't
played Miles Morales yet, but that's just because it's too expensive, and I'm not willing to pay the money for a $70 game.
Sure.
But Spider-Man PS4, one of the best games of all time, in my opinion.
I think a lot of people would agree with that. Yeah. So what's the plan? I know that's such a stereotypical question that people don't like hearing, but you want to stay here in the area for a while, or do you see yourself going back down south for any reason?
For now, it's staying in the area, helping this church kind of grow. It's a 200-year-old church, so it's able to survive on its own, of course. But staying with the church and helping it grow and building a family with Cassandra, sticking around her family too. She's from Elkton, Maryland, so we live very close to her family, which is nice. But just staying around and trying to make money so that we're not stressing about money, but not trying to put it first, of course.
Alright, I hope you guys are enjoying this conversation with Noah. We had so much to talk about that I'm actually going to pause it here, split it into 2 parts, and save the rest for next week. We spent the first half reliving some old memories as teammates and catching up on what's been happening at college. The second half is going to focus mostly on our shared interests, so we'll be talking sports, we'll be discussing the current state of NASCAR, we're going to get into Marvel and Spider-Man and a few other things as well, so stay tuned for that. We'll see you next week. Have a good day, everyone.